Okay, so here we are with our last installment for this term in the big story of God. When you know the big story, it's easier to find your place as a storyteller in the story right now. Last week we left Joseph, Jacob's favourite son, so much his favourite son that he'd given him a colourful, bright coat to show the whole world what a great son he was. He'd been sold into slavery by his brothers. He's now in Egypt, where Pharaoh has also given him an incredibly expensive, rich-looking, lavish coat to signify to everybody across Egypt that although Pharaoh was the king, next in charge was Joseph. And he'd given Joseph that coat because Joseph had interpreted one of Pharaoh's dreams, that there were going to be 7 years of a bumper harvest followed by 7 years of famine. So during the first 7 years when all the crops were growing, Joseph built storehouses across Egypt so that in the second 7 years he was able to sell and give grain to people who needed it so that they could make flour and bread and cakes and things like that. Everybody, thanks to Joseph, in Egypt was safe. But remember, not everybody lives in Egypt. In fact, back in Canaan is still Jacob and all of the other brothers, all of the other sons that Jacob had with Rachel and Leah and the maidservants. And after a few years, they get hungry. So Jacob says to them, "You gotta go down to Egypt and buy some grain off the people in charge there." So that's what the brothers do. They all load up their donkeys with sacks and they go down to Egypt with some silver in their wallets ready to pay for the grain. I say that's what the brothers do. That's what all of the brothers do except one, Benjamin, Jacob's new favourite son, the only other son that was born to his favourite wife, Rachel. The brothers get down to Egypt and they're lining up at the back of this queue. At the front of the queue is Joseph. He's in charge of giving out the food and the grain and making sure that everybody is okay. But he's dressed as an Egyptian. He's got a different hat or a wig on or something. He's speaking Egyptian. They haven't seen him for decades. They're not expecting to see him, so they don't recognize him. When the brothers get to the front of the queue, they bow down before this incredibly important man who recognizes them but doesn't let on. He thinks to himself, those are my brothers. Payback time. He says to them, "You guys are spies. You've come to make sure that you can lead an army to attack Egypt because we've got a famine on. You're spies." The brothers say, "No, we're not spies." In fact, they say to him, "We're good, honest people. We're kind. We're family guys. We're just normal, kind, trustworthy, humble people who've left our elderly dad back home with his new favourite son, and all we want to do is give you the silver and buy grain." "No, you're not. You're spies." "No, we're not honest." "No, that sounds like a made-up story to me. Honest men, a favourite younger brother with a favourite wife and an old dad at home. That sounds like spy talk to me." So Joseph makes up a whole bunch of tests to see if the brothers really are changed, to see if they are trustworthy, to see if they are honest men after all. These tests are incredible. In fact, one of the brothers, Simeon, he throws him into prison. And he says to the brothers, "The only way you can get Simeon back out is if you go home with your grain that I'll let you have and bring back this younger brother you've got and prove to me that you were telling the truth." So that's what they do. In fact, Joseph goes another step and he hides some of the money that they were going to buy the grain with in their sacks just to see if they'll be honest with the money and bring it back to him. Not only do they bring Benjamin, the younger brother, but they also bring the silver back to him and they say to him, "Look, we're so sorry. We thought, we don't know how this happened, but here's the money that we owe you. We'd like to buy some more, and here's our younger brother. Please let us have Simeon back out of jail. You can see that we're telling the truth." Joseph plays another trick on them. This time he invites them round for a meal and he says, "Okay, you can have the grain, go home." But he hides a golden cup inside Benjamin's donkey's sack. The next day, all the brothers on their way home get arrested. Joseph pretends that he's going to throw Benjamin in prison until Judah steps up and says, "No, don't put him in prison. Put me in prison instead. That would destroy our dad if he loses both of his favourite sons." When Judah says this, Joseph knows that the brothers are changed men. They're now honest with their family. They're looking to look after their elderly dad. They're looking to take care of each other and their brothers. They can be trusted. They are different people. And so, in front of everybody, he takes off his disguise. Bet he didn't see that coming. He says, "It's me, Joe." "No way," say the brothers. And then they go back to Canaan and they get Jacob and they bring Jacob down with 70 of their wives and their children and the people that help them on the farm. And they are reunited with Joseph. Joseph gives them land that they can farm and a home that they can live in and a safe place to live and food to eat that gets them all through the famine. On the first night that they're all back reunited, telling stories about what the heck happened, Joseph says, "Look, you guys, let's be honest, you didn't do a great job. We were a terrible family. We destroyed a whole bunch of stuff. You tried to destroy me. You threw me down a hole. You sold me into slavery. And you thought that was the end of it. But apart from lying to your dad, the stuff that you thought would destroy me and was for harm, somehow God has used it for good." I mean, look around. I'm the second most powerful and important person in the world. I'm saving a whole nation and other people from famine and from starvation. God somehow has used this whole situation and turned it around for good. Isn't that amazing? So, what do we learn? Number one, if the last time you saw your brother, you were throwing him in a hole or selling him into slavery, the next time you see him in a couple of decades later might be a bit of a surprise. Number two, anybody can change. Doesn't matter your starting point. Doesn't matter how destructive your patterns of behavior might be to start off with. God can change anybody. Number three, this is an important lesson throughout the story of God. Just when it looks like the situation is too dark, is beyond hope, cannot be used for good, when all things have gone wrong, there's this reoccurring theme of little shoots, little sprouts of hope, which keep popping up. It's almost as if, say the storytellers, that God is behind the scenes working things out for good. So never give up. Number four, God said the promise of his blessing was for all people. Well, the people that are going to tell the world about that just got moved down to a whole new country and plonked right in the center of it. That would be a great position to tell the whole world about the goodness, grace, kindness, blessing, and love of God. Don't you think? And so now we've finished the big story for this term. We'll pick it up again in September. But remember this, the people of God, the family of God, now find themselves down in Egypt. They're going to be there for a few hundred years. And the fact that they're down there is incredibly important to remember for where we pick up from in September.